Hi there. Welcome here to our second talk here about pain science. My name is Justin. I'm a physiotherapist here at Abbotsford CBI. I'm pleased to share with you the second part of our series here, and I just call this one Pain 2. Let me start here with a simple story. Imagine that you are walking in the woods. Some are serene, some are quiet, maybe deep into the wilderness. The light is getting a little darker. The sun is setting down. You're far away enough from the campsite here, but you know you should turn around again. And so you do, you're on your way back, and then all of a sudden you hear snap. A twig crunches under the ground behind you, and you turn to look. You don't see anything because it's too dark out there. Your heart starts to racing. You feel the sweat coming out of your pores, and you start running back to your base camp. This is the idea of what the body does here under a certain amount of threat. Whether that threat here is a perceived threat or an actual threat here, the body kind of responds the same way. So that one we'll put up here is a threat. The other comparison I want to make is in conjunction here with a challenge. So I'll give you another example. The challenge here, you are a police officer and you've come upon a threatening individual. That individual has got a knife, and you as a police officer are called in to take care of the situation. Now, it would seem like a man with a knife here would be quite the threat, but you have a few tools on you. One, you have some nice armor around you. Helmet, face shield, gloves, elbow braces. You also have some tools around you here to protect yourself. Baton, a gun, pepper spray, and you also have backups behind you that are ready to go in case things go sideways. In the second example here, we're talking about a threat again, this time not a perceived threat, but a real one. And again, the body will do the same sort of thing. Stimulate the autonomic nervous system to fight, flight, freeze. You're kind of ready to go. The adrenaline kicks in. Except the police officer here who's encountered that man with the knife many times before no longer considers it being a threat anymore. And he might just consider it being more of a challenge. And you see here the difference between a threat and a challenge, if you really think about it, there's not actually that much. It's more like a continuum between the two. So things can be more challenging or things can be more threatening depending on what kind of tools that you have. In fact, there's actually only one thing that kind of changes or tips the scale between these two ideas. Can you think of what it is? You're like, it depends. Right, it depends on context. Context is the thing here that really depends, makes it swing one way or another. You know, walk in the woods here, if it was daytime and you turned behind you and you saw that it was a dog, well, immediately the threat goes away. And even so, our body here has different threats that are associated here with it, in particular pain. We kind of define threats and define challenges here. Most people will say threats here are something like that's dangerous, something that's unsafe, something that you'll regret later, something that makes you uncomfortable in a bad way. And these ones here on the challenge side is you're uncomfortable, but in a good way, kind of this positive and reinforcement to push yourself to grow a little bit. So challenge here, we think about here that we have growth. And we also have safety here. Like we're safe enough to grow within the challenge. We're in the gymnasium here and we're walking on a balance beam, practicing our ability to walk on uneven surfaces or small, narrow. And it's not here you're walking across the Grand Canyon on that same platform. The challenge is safe. The other one, kind of dangerous. When we think about pain with this one here, we want to really apply it, and we call it the DIMS and the SIMS. Danger here is DIMS. So a danger in me, DIMS. Danger in me. And a SIM is a safety in me. SIM. And there's like, that continuum between the two. Is it more safe or is it more dangerous? Let's give this into really particular context. If you have a pen and paper here, this is where I'd ask you to pause the video, grab something to write down on, and let's write these things out here together. They're quite important here as we're thinking about here how pain impacts our body, in particular how other things here have impacted us. Let's go here with a simple example. What your doctor says. So what your doctor says is obviously quite important. And sometimes here, what the doctor says here can be interpreted here as safety in me. There's nothing wrong here. Like, great, there's nothing wrong here. That's awesome. But sometimes the same doctor sentence here says there's nothing wrong here can also mean danger. You say, how? Well, if you still have pain and there's nothing wrong with you, well then he's really not getting it, or maybe he's suggesting something else. And it can be taken here either way, depending on your context of how you receive that information. What does your doctor say? Write that down here, whether or not here that has given you more safety, or whether that has reinforced here some sort of danger. How about here the second one was images. Images such as X-rays, MRIs, CT scans. Again, depending on what the image shows here and what's happening in our own body here, sometimes it lines up really nicely. The image shows nothing and we felt nothing. I'm safe. But what if the image showed something here? Is that reinforcing here that there's something dangerous about it? Something dangerous here in our body. In your particular example here, how have images impacted here your credible evidence of danger, credible evidence of safety? How about the sensations or feelings in your body? What you feel? That sensation that you get here when the pain comes on or the discomfort comes on here. Is that reinforcement here that something is threatening? Or something to be challenged, to be overcome? How about thoughts? Now you're going deeper into this. Our thoughts about our body here, credible evidence of a threat or credible evidence of a safety, SIM. What about other people, what the other people say? Particularly those people that are closest to you, maybe your friends and family. What if they said here that gives you more swinging one way or the other? Your context here is very important. We say pain is unique, it's individualized. Nobody experiences the same kind of pain in the same sort of way, absolutely. And this idea of context really does shed light on that. And so if we want to understand here why pain affects us differently in different ways, in different countries of the world, for example, we really need to understand where it's becoming amplified or where it's becoming diminished. challenge you with this one to explore the DIMS and SIMS. And if you want more information on the DIMS and SIMS, you can check out the NOI group here, NOI group in Australia. They've done a really good job here about explaining here some of these phenomenon. Now, take a little break from that side here. We'll go to a fresh whiteboard. Put my email there on the first bit there. If you wanted to email me any questions, you can definitely do that here. Now we're talking about here what's happening in the brain. Last session here, we talked about what's happening in the body. We said that the body here can amplify a signal here. It can have like a bit of a megaphone effect. And this is due to the glial cells or the immune system here magnifying the signal, bombarding the signal with danger signals. And the brain is interpreting that here as pain. But the brain, oh my goodness, what does the brain do? It does everything. But I find here if we break it up into its pieces here, we do a little bit of dissection, a little bit of neuroanatomy if it's not too scary for you, you find that it's a little bit more intuitive than you first thought. So here we go. This is your brain. Or something of a semblance of your brain. Cerebellum, insula, prefrontal cortex, sensory cortex. Don't worry about this. All right, and we have like a spinal cord. That kind of comes right off. All right, so if you got your piece of paper there, perfect. Think about here, one function of the brain. What does it do? What's its purpose? What can it do? Start to list out here, maybe not one thing, but two things or three things. I'll get us going here with the first one. Thinking. The brain can think. Yes, it can think. Particularly here in the front here, we call this the prefrontal cortex. We have consciousness. We have memories. Pretty cool. Actually, this thinking here, this power, this supercomputer on the top here is able to do some wonderful things such as calculations. Perceived threat. It can calculate here whether that stick sound here was from a bear that was about to chase you here or from a dog. And you can rationalize things here according to that as well based on your previous context that you've been there before. Often we can think our way out of problems, but sometimes we can think our way into problems. Thinking here is a very, very powerful tool that we want to be using here when we're thinking about the brain and how it amplifies signal and it turns down signals, or it's selective here with it. So let's go into that here. What does that mean by being selective with it? Well, the sensation, let's go there. We have particular senses here, and there are 5 of them, if you can list them. We have taste, touch, smell, see, hear. The 5 senses here of our body. And the question we have here is, do we see with our eyes or do we see with our brain? Last guy I had here, he said both. Well, the answer is yes, both. But if we actually only saw with our eyes, we would see the whole world in reverse order, flipped around and switched. Oh. Of course, it's being processed. We know these things are being processed for a few different reasons. The example I give here is the blind spot. So in the middle of your eye, just to the right side of each of the eyeballs, there's a blind spot. We don't actually see anything here. There are no retina. There's no sensory cells that pick up any light because that's where the optic nerve goes through. You can find that one by closing one eye, bring your thumb out straight, and then just to the side here like this. At this point, if I'm looking straight, my thumb will disappear. Blind spot, but we've never actually really seen the blind spot when we're looking, because the brain image is always filled in. Second example. You ever notice here how many times that you blink your eyes? A blink here takes 1/10 of a second. It's very quick. You're like, I just don't notice it. It's too quick. Nah. If you're watching a movie and the movie frame went black and then to the movie screen again for 1/10 of a second, every 8 to 10 seconds of the movie, you'd be looking at the thing saying something's wrong with the projector. You would definitely notice it. And yet we don't notice it at all. It's being processed. Same thing here with the ears. Do we hear with our ears? Do we have selective hearing? Right, so we can pay attention to different sounds and we can kind of ignore other sounds. Example I have when we had our firstborn child. My wife was carrying the infant back home and we had the first night in the house. We're both exhausted. She's exhausted. When we're sleeping here, and I sleep all through the night. The baby wakes up in the middle of the night here, and guess who wakes up? Mom. Of course, Mom wakes up. Dad doesn't wake up. Why did I not wake up because of my own child's crying? Context. Right. My brain said it wasn't that important for me to wake up at that time. It was more important for me to sleep. And my wife's brain had the exact opposite reaction. It was tuned to the particular frequency of that baby's cry. We both have ears. They both work. Same thing with taste, same thing with smell, right? We have some smells that are agreeable to us, others that are unagreeable with us, and we get used to a lot of smells when we start working around them, particularly the smell of our own house, for example. The question here, what about what we feel? Pain, something we feel. Is it processed? Yes. Everything is processed in the brain. Next example. What else can the brain do? Think, feel sensations. It can also, my favorite, move. Motor control and movement here is related to this little spot in the brain here, this little chunk of brain matter that initiates movement. I was at UBC and I was a hungry grad student. And there's an advertisement, want free pizza? And I said, yes, I'll take free pizza. So they're like, sign on the dotted line, you get free pizza. I'm like, sweet, what do I have to do? Like, yeah, just go in that room and we're gonna put a magnet in your head. And they did. There was a large double coiled magnet, about kind of like this size, 2 coils like this. And they'd put it onto my head, close enough to my skull, but not touching me. Then they would turn it on for a brief moment and it would make a sound like this. It would also feel like that. Sounded like that, felt like that, it wasn't touching me. It's really weird. And as it did that, that's happening here, made my body move. And they moved the magnet again. They say, nope, no, it's not right. They say, nope, that's not right. And there it was. They moved the magnet to the right spot here, so it hit that particular muscle, or the neuron in my right hemisphere that controls the left muscle in my opponent's pollicis, thumb. Great. So they did that here 1,000 times. Got me riding a bike, did it again, some memory tests, and then I got my free pizza. I was really happy about all that. With this technology here, this ability to turn the neurons on and off, pretty cool. I could see the physical connection between my brain and my body. It was awesome. But with this connection here, they would never be able to use it to make me play, for example, like the piano. Because it would sound like this. it would either be on or be off. They would have no control of the movement. It's kind of like an on-off switch, ones or zeros. And that's what these neurons do here. They're kind of ones or zeros, the flip switch, the light switch to those muscles. Did you know that those muscles could actually be turned off? There's actually a switch that you use most every night. If you ever are into a sleep cycle called REM cycle sleep, one of those deep sleeps, your eyes are moving, your body's not. Your body is literally paralyzed this time. These cells have hit the off switch and prevents us here from acting out most of our dreams. Most of the time. But we are paralyzed actually at that point. We can't move. It is turned off. Now, there's something here that controls the movement here in this part of the brain, yes, but it requires something else in this part of the brain to make it kind of coordinate a little bit better. Like, yeah, coordination, muscle memory here, repetition. And I used the word tone to describe here what I'm talking about, tone. Now, the tone of a muscle, it's not just what it sounds like, what it feels like. It can be either high tone or low tone. Take the example of a cat sleeping indoors, sun beating through the window, it's basking, it's relaxed. And you pick the cat up to move it into a different room. As you put your hands around the body of the cat, it becomes like water under your fingers. We call that low tone. Low tone, it's really kind of not on. It's kind of relaxed, easy. On the opposite side here, we have high tone, and that same cat, after it sees a dog that has been barking at it, raises its hair on its back, arches its spine, and you pick up that same cat again, and what will it do? It will, we call that high tone. This is a phenomenon we explain here for people that sometimes have some weird things going on in the body. Spasms, unable to move sometimes, finding it difficult to coordinate itself, finding things that are harder to move than what it used to be. It's just not obeying its voluntary command anymore. Yes, the brain is able to change the tone depending on the context. Sometimes it will feel too relaxed, not strong enough, heavy as lead. Other times here, it will be too tight, spastic here, not wanting to let go. Part of the exercises that you're doing here is actually to work on this tone here, to change that spasticity of it here by developing motor control, physiotherapy, kinesiology, exercise. Super excited about this stuff. It's really cool to change. And it's possible. Well, very good. At this point here, I normally take a break through the video. So if you feel like your brain is full, this is a good time to hit the pause button, and we'll continue back here with the rest of what the brain does. But if you want to just keep going, we'll keep going too. What else can the brain do? Well, we said that there is an ability for the autonomic nervous system, autonomic. We said the fight, flight, freeze system. The autonomic nervous system is, as it sounds, not in our control. Particular organs here are affected by the autonomic nervous system. One of the most accessible ones here is the heart. So you can have a high heart rate, high blood pressure, or you can have low blood pressure, low heart rate, depending on here how this one is. There's actually kind of two levers on it. So this one here is a lever that can raise the heart rate. So you can kind of turn that one on. It's like the gas pedal. How fast you're going, gas pedal on or off. And the second one here is the brake pedal. So how hard you're pushing on the brakes. We don't tend to drive a car with pushing both at the same time, and neither does our body. It kind of uses one or another or a combination of all those to set the heart rate. Autonomic nervous system here does this without us even thinking about it, which is kind of nice here. It takes care of us a little bit. The other parts of the inside body here is, for example, the lungs. The lungs also are breathing. It's kind of interesting because we have some control of it, and other times we don't have any control of it. Said another way here, if I think about it, I can control my breathing. And if I don't think about it, no problem, it'll kick into its automatic pilot. The question will be here is whether actually we want it to be into automatic pilot, if that's helpful for us or not. And the next one here is our ability of our digestive system. And there's our stomach, for example, or intestines. And we don't really control here how often or how much our stomach gurgles, how fast we digest food, but we do know here if you are running away from a bear, your stomach is not making the gurglies so much. It's kind of turning off the stomach organs. It's not that important at this point. It's more important to put the energy into your heart and into your muscles and not to just digest the food. Autonomic nervous system here also can do weird things to our nervous system. The interiors, such as causing here digestive issues. Rapid breathing when you're just resting. Rapid heart rate when you're sitting on your couch. Sometimes there's other names for these things. But essentially you can understand here that the brain does control this according to what it deems to be necessary for that moment. Is it necessary to get it prepared for fight, flight, freeze? Or to rest, digest, and relax as it would be for the brake system? And the brain here will make that decision for us. Autonomic nervous system. Very good. Is there anything else that the brain does? It takes a little bit of coaxing out, but we can talk about a few other ones. Emotions. If you've ever seen the movie Inside Out, you'll recognize that there was a certain amount of emotions on the inside of the brain. It was animated, Pixar movie here. And there was a blue character and she was sad, and there was like a happy character, and there was an angry character. It was well animated here. The core emotions that we have here is sad, mad, and glad. And usually they add two others here, fear and disgust. And those are just 5 of the emotions that we have here. Of course, we have more than that here, but these are deep-seated parts of our brain. The question, do they control us? Well, let me put it this way here. The brain here is kind of like 2 fists. It's about the size, actually, of it. If it kind of sits in your, that's kind of what it looks like. And if you open up the fists, you will see that there is an inside part and an outside part. The inside part here is our thumb. Reptilian brain here, what we call limbic system, is deep-seated here, and it contains here our emotional part of the brain. On the top here is our cortex, the outside of the brain here. And that's where most of our thinking and moving and our senses are, on the outside here as well. Usually here, our emotions, this part of our brain, is covered nicely by a rational part of the brain. But sometimes when you're driving, you've got a place to go, somebody cuts you off on the highway, we can flip our lid and let all the emotions here express themselves freely as they want to until we can control our breathing again here and we can bring that lid back down. I mean, emotions of mad, we can kind of resonate here, but we can also flip our lid here when we have intense amounts of joy. We're not thinking about being rational or what other people are looking at us. We're dancing on the street in joy. We can have intense disgust or intense fear. All these things here can overtake the body. And as some people like to say here, it's kind of like you are riding on top. Like you are in control of your brain. As an elephant is led to the water by the rider on top. Control the ears, make it move, do the work. But other times we feel, oh man, I am not in control of this elephant. This elephant is in control of me. I feel underneath, feel controlled by it. This paradox of the elephant and the rider here is where we live every day. Are we in control of the brain or are we not in control of the brain? Yes. Bear with me, we have a few more. We're talking about pain, right? The brain also has the functions here of sleep. What a weird one. Sleep. Like, let's just turn the brain off for a little bit of time. It's actually not what happens at all, right? Sleep is a very active part of our brain cycle here. It is, if you look at the electrodes on it, it is alive and firing. It actually consumes quite a bit of resources to clean up the brain here after a day of being awake. But sleep is very interesting because it turns off this thinking part of the brain. The consciousness turns off for a bit. Quite amazing. Wait, what sets the amount of sleep that you get? You or your brain? Right, we can't actually even force ourselves to fall asleep, especially here when our mind is racing. We're sitting quietly in our bedroom. We say, go to sleep now. Now is the time to go to sleep. You must go to sleep now or else you'll be tired tomorrow morning. Sleep, 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 sleep. And that's the time here that sleep escapes us probably the most, when we try to force it away to make it happen. How about the immune system? What sets the body's temperature for a fever? What rallies a resource here to fight off an infection? Or develops here an immune response here to a vaccine that you've been given? Or a virus? Well, the immune system is, of course, all set by the brain. And now we're asking ourselves here, well, this is all fine and dandy. The brain can do a lot of things. Of course, it can do almost all of those things that we think about. Where is the pain? Is there a way for me to go to the doctor's office and ask him to open him up here and just kind of take it out? Like we have a spot for seeing and a spot for moving and a spot that controls our heart. Is there a spot of the pain that I can just take out? Pain's in the brain. Why can't I control it? Why doesn't medications always work with it? Let me put it this way here. Does thinking about your pain, thinking about the sensations of your body or how it feels, change your pain? Does it have an impact here to it? Well, yeah. If I distract myself, it can maybe. But if I were to focus on it, it can really. Does movement here change my pain? Like exercise or activity? Yeah. Does my pain come with a sensation? Painful, right. It's also impacted here by sights or sounds. Sometimes it can be. Does my pain affect my emotions? Does my emotions affect my pain? Does it change my heart rate or my breathing rate? Sometimes even my digestion. Does pain impact my sleep? Does pain impact my immune system? Absolutely. Oh, it's like a spider web. Yeah, it's like a spider web where it's kind of like interacting with itself. And it's actually held here like a spider's web here. It's kind of held in place by the strength of these cords that you see associated with many different areas here. You see, there's not just one spot in the brain. It's held in spots by lots of things. And more than that here, it's kind of interacting between things. Does the way I think about movement impact my movement? Well, yeah. We talked about last time here. If we do a movement here, we need to make sure it's safe. We're not going to regret it later. That's thinking about movement here before we're even moving. Does our movement affect the sensations or the pain itself? Do our sensations affect our emotions? Do our emotions impact how fast my heart rate goes or my breathing rate? Does my autonomic system impact my sleeping? Does the amount of sleep that I get impact my immune system? Yeah. Now we're understanding here the connections between it all. Although it looks quite busy here, I hope you've been able to follow along with me. Man, pain is complex. It should not be boiled down to a single thing. It should not be assumed it affects all people the same way. But I wanted to give you guys some good news. What kind of good news do I have for you? Well, there's things we could do actually. So out of all these things here, you've kind of lifted them out. Maybe you've drawn them out yourself. Keep this for a rainy day. Which ones do we have control over? Like that elephant rider or underneath here, which ones do we can really muster up the strength to control? Can I control my immune system? Can I control my thinking? Yeah, we'll put a little star by it. I mean, it's not easy, but I can actually change the way I think about things. And if I change the way I think about things, such as how challenging something is versus how threatening something is, well, actually, I can start to weaken the connection that it has. The spider web becomes a little bit more weak. What about movement? Well, yeah, I can move differently. If I tried moving more, tried moving less, pacing myself, going easy, gently challenging myself rather than jumping wholeheartedly into a threat. Can I move? Stretch. Change the tone of the muscles. Cool. And as you do that, there's a weakening of the connection towards pain. What about sensation? Can I change here what I feel? It's like asking you to change what you see. Like you can't unsee something that you've seen, right? You can't unhear something that you've heard. Same thing with the feelings of our body here. Let's be frank here about it. Our feelings of our body here are real. They're true to us. They're something only we can perceive here. Not figments of our imagination here. Make believe. If I look deep enough here, and if I have a powerful enough dissection scope here, I will see physical connections, wires, that are connecting these things together. Amazing. Although it can be processed, I do not believe here that our senses can be diminished, nor do I believe it's beneficial for us to diminish our sensations. Ignore them. Pretend that they're not there. That's like pretending that you're not seeing a whiteboard. That doesn't make sense to me. So no, we can change the processing of the sensations, but we're not really going to focus on that one to try to get rid of the sensations. After all, they're just sensations. What about emotions? Can I change my emotions? I guess so. But it's not that easy to do. Like, okay, you're sad, right? You come to my house and say, oh, you look sad today. I'm like, well, I know how to change sadness. Just stop being sad and then be happy. Here, let's be happy together. Bah, 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 bah. You're going to slap me. Because it's not really appropriate to do, for one. Number two, your emotions aren't easily swayed one way or another. Right. Is it easier to change here what I'm feeling, or is it easier to change here what I'm thinking? Autonomic nervous system here. Can I change my heart rate? Maybe. But I could probably change here my breathing rate. That's easier for us to do. It's actually a great place to start because you can have voluntary control over it. Very, very cool. All right. So we're getting to the end here. If you're hanging on with me here, you're doing really good. Got one last thing for us to show. Says, man, this thing is hard. How do I weaken the connections to some of these things and others? Well, let me give you some encouragement. It's possible. There's certain chemicals in your brain here that you can actually release. The first one here is called dopamine. It's our happy drug. Dopamine here is released here when we exercise, when we move. People with Parkinson's disease, they kind of move with a stuttery kind of gait and very small with their movements of their hands, very quiet with their mouth. And you give them a dopamine pill. It's called levodopa. Not dope, it's just levodopa. And they move. They move really well. In like 15 minutes, they start moving really well. People with Parkinson's disease really respond well to a dopamine pill for a few hours, and then it kind of wears off again. They get the smallness. And so what we do here in physio for people with Parkinson's disease is we give them an exercise program, particularly effective if implemented early on. We exercise them, and they do the jumping jacks and the treadmill, the bicycle, and they do a whole variety of exercise here. And it actually stimulates the brain to produce dopamine, which of course improves their mood, but actually just makes them move easier. And sometimes they can even get off their medication. Pretty cool. Movement works to release dopamine. Pretty amazing. Serotonin. Serotonin is our mood regulator. Like when we're feeling ups or downs here in life here, serotonin kind of keeps us into an even keel. And serotonin is released here when we're actually changing something that's challenging, getting something that's challenging and accomplishing it. We get a little bit more serotonin, we kind of are able to ride out the rough waves. And so if you're having a hard time balancing your serotonin, find a project that you enjoy doing. Could be as small as drawing, knitting, sketching. Or could be doing something bigger, some woodworking or painting or building, some kind of project of yourself, something maybe even using with your hands or a crossword puzzle. And as you build more success with those ones, you get more regulation here for serotonin. That would be nice to have. Noradrenaline. Noradrenaline is our lightning bolt. or adrenaline here is the idea of energy. Now, adrenaline here is its cousin, and that gives us a short burning crash kind of thing. Boom and bust. But noradrenaline here gives us sustained energy for whole days worth of activities. And you get noradrenaline here when you work through something that's fatiguing. So actually doing an exercise to the point of fatigue, you get more of noradrenaline. It'll boost your sleep here, make you sleepy at nighttime. Good. You can do a little bit of that by doing something, some sort of movement again. Maybe joyful movement, trying that one this time. Oxytocin. Oxytocin is our love drug. Most notably noted for when a mother gives birth, the fetus here will climb to the mother's breast here and will suck, will root. And mother and baby are inundated here with oxytocin flood. It creates a loving attachment bond to them. Now, if you ask the mother here, does that make a difference for your pain? I'm not sure if anybody's actually done that. Sounds like a risky subject. But oxytocin here, this attachment bond here will create here an attachment that makes it more, I don't know, worth it. We get more oxytocin here by human touch, like skin to skin touch. And if that doesn't work here, then actually even bringing your hands around your body and giving yourself like an 8-second squeeze, a long time squeeze here can be very helpful to get a little bit of oxytocin boost. And our last one, the drug cabinet in your brain, opioids. Didn't think that you had opioids, drugs in your brain, did you? You can actually release them. Now, opioids here are released in your brain, and of course, they help with pain reduction. Awesome. How do you get them? Painful exercises actually release the opioids in the brain. Helps us to kind of endure a little bit more, but it's amazing here when it's actually being released. You see, there's drugs in our brain here that can be released that can change the connections in the brain, the spider web, loosen the connections of pain here. And once you have enough here, credible evidence of safety, your pain tends to go down. When you have more credible evidence of danger, pain tends to go up. So thank you for joining me here today for our session on this one. If you have any questions, please reach out to me here. I look forward here to seeing you progress here with this one, this information here. Let me know if it was helpful for you. Until next time here, I'm going to sign out. My name is Justin here, part of the Abbotsford group at CBI. You take care now.